One of the most important realizations I ever had in my marriage didn't happen during an argument. It didn't happen during a crisis. It didn't happen because something dramatic happened. It happened quietly. And because it happened quietly, I almost missed it. For a long time, I thought being needed and being appreciated were the same thing. I didn't know there was a difference. I just knew my husband depended on me. The house depended on me. The family depended on me. Everything seemed to run through me. If something needed to be done, I did it. If something needed attention, I handled it. If somebody needed help, I showed up. And because everybody depended on me, I took that as love. I thought if people need you, that must mean they value you. At least that's what I believed. Jake relied on me heavily, and honestly, I took that dependence as proof of how important I was to him. I thought that's what appreciation looked like. But over the years, something started happening inside of me. Not all at once, not dramatically, just quietly. I started feeling tired. Not physically tired, emotionally tired. The kind of tired that sleep doesn't fix. I was still functioning, still cooking, still cleaning, still showing up, still doing everything I had always done. From the outside, everything looked fine, but inside, something felt different, and I couldn't put my finger on what it was. I wasn't angry. I wasn't planning to leave. I wasn't even calling it loneliness. I just knew I felt worn down. Looking back now, I realized I was carrying a feeling I didn't have words for. I felt invisible. Not completely invisible, just invisible in small ways. The kind of invisible where people appreciate what you do, but stop noticing the person doing it. And that's a very lonely place to be. One day, I realized something that stopped me in my tracks. I was probably the most needed person in the house. And I want to stay right there for a moment because I think a lot of women know exactly what that feels like. You wake up in the morning, and before your feet hit the floor, somebody needs something. The coffee needs to be made, breakfast needs to be fixed, the laundry needs attention, the errands need to be run. The phone is ringing. Somebody has a question. Somebody needs help. Somebody needs advice. And all day long, you're responding, helping, serving, giving, solving, managing, carrying. And because you're busy doing all those things, you don't stop to ask yourself how you're doing. You don't stop to ask yourself what you're feeling. You don't stop to ask yourself what you need, because everybody else's needs feel more urgent. So you keep moving. And for a while, that feels normal. It even feels purposeful. You feel useful. You feel responsible. You feel important. But usefulness and connection are not the same thing. Being depended on and being emotionally seen are not the same thing. And that's where I got confused. Because people thanked me for what I did. People appreciated the meals. People appreciated the help. People appreciated the things that got done. But deep down, I wasn't longing for someone to notice the work. I was longing for someone to notice me. And those are two different things. One says, I see what you accomplished. The other says, I see what this is costing you. One notices the task. The other notices the person. And if you've ever been the woman who carries a lot, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Because sometimes everybody notices what gets done, but very few people notice what it takes out of you to keep doing it. That realization hit me hard because I had spent years believing that being indispensable made me a good wife. I grew up in a generation where women were taught to keep everything together. You cooked, you cleaned, you sacrificed, you served. You carried things quietly. You made sure everybody else was okay. And if you did all of that well, then you were considered a good wife. So I kept giving. I kept serving. I kept holding everything together. What I didn't realize was that being indispensable and being valued are not the same thing. And somewhere along the way, I had allowed myself to become more of a function than a person. Not because anybody intended for that to happen, not because my husband didn't love me, but because I had never stopped long enough to ask myself what I needed. I only focused on what everybody else needed. Then one day, I asked myself a question, and that question changed everything. Am I being loved, or am I being relied on and calling it love because it's familiar? That question opened my eyes, not to blame my husband, not to criticize my marriage, but to understand why I felt the way I did. Need is automatic. Need expects. Need reaches for what it's accustomed to receiving. And the longer something becomes part of a routine, the easier it is for people to stop seeing it. Not because they're ungrateful, not because they're bad people, not because they don't love you, but because consistency becomes familiar. And familiar things often become invisible. Think about electricity in your house. Most days you don't think about it. You flip a switch and the lights come on. You expect it. You rely on it. You appreciate it when you stop and think about it. But most of the time, it simply works. And after a while, that's how some people begin to experience the person who carries everything. They know you'll remember. They know you'll handle it. They know you'll take care of it. They know you'll figure it out. And because they know that, they stop noticing how much effort is required. Not intentionally, it just becomes part of life. But for the person carrying it, the effort never disappears. The responsibility never disappears. The emotional weight never disappears. And eventually, something inside begins asking, does anybody see how much I'm carrying? Not because you want applause, not because you want recognition every day, but because every human being wants to feel seen. Every human being wants to feel known. Every human being wants to feel understood. And marriage is no exception. But appreciation is different. Appreciation pauses. Appreciation notices. Appreciation sees. Appreciation says, I see how much you carry. I see what you do. I see you. And that's what I was missing. I wasn't asking to be needed. I already knew I was needed. I was asking to be seen. And that's a very different thing. Once I understood that, I could finally talk about it honestly. not with anger, not with resentment, not with a list of complaints, with honesty. And that honesty changed something. It changed how I showed up. It changed how I communicated. And it changed how my husband responded to me. One of the reasons I'm sharing this story today is because I wish someone had explained this to me when I was a younger wife. What I've learned at 67 years old is that a lot of women don't need less responsibility. They need more honesty. Honesty about how they're feeling, honesty about what they're carrying, honesty about what they need. Because for years, I thought strength meant carrying everything quietly. I thought strength meant handling it all without saying anything. I thought strength meant figuring it out by myself. But maturity taught me something different. Sometimes strength is speaking up. Sometimes strength is allowing yourself to be known. Sometimes strength is admitting that you're tired. Sometimes strength is saying, I need more than for you to depend on me. I need you to see me. And that conversation changed something in my marriage. Because once I understood what I was actually feeling, I could finally communicate it. Not through frustration, not through resentment, not through silence, but through clarity. And clarity creates understanding. Understanding creates connection. And connection is what most of us are really looking for. Not to be needed, but to be known. Not to be used, but to be understood. Not just to be depended on, but to be truly seen. I wish someone had told me that being needed and being appreciated are not the same thing. Because there may be a woman listening right now who feels exactly the way I felt. She's showing up every day, taking care of everybody, doing everything that needs to be done, and quietly wondering why she still feels tired. Maybe the issue isn't that she isn't loved. Maybe the issue is that she hasn't felt seen. And there is a difference. It took me years to understand that. Hopefully, it won't take you as long as it took me. I'm Donna, and that's one of the things marriage taught me the hard way.